Abhijit Naskar is a man you may have seen. He pops up in the Discord gift section every once in a while with his generic quotes and platitudes. There are some included in the B-roll right now if you need a refresher or haven't seen them. So who is he really? Behind the face and the name, the gifts and the books. Well, many places say he's a neuroscientist. Some say he's a poet, an author. You know what I say? He's a liar and a pseudo-intellectual.
It's always you think black people.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude.
And oh boy, you will see later why, in my opinion, this man is a pure-blood deceiver of the masses. And you will not believe it, I swear. But for now, I wonder why. Why does he do it all? What is his goal? And, as I was writing out this script, many things came to mind. An agenda, a narcissistic need to be seen as intelligent, money, perhaps a mix of all three. But by the end, you can make up your own mind. Now, my viewers, we are going to look at one of the great philosophical and scientific minds of our generation, who can challenge even Marcus Aurelius. He's a man who was destined to be nothing more than a phone scammer, but broke that mold. Where to even start on this journey of 10,000 steps, but at the point where many first see his visage, the gifts. All of these are posted to his Tenor account, where there are thousands upon thousands of them, all with his face in a quote, often using the same three pictures. Let's look at a few of these philosophical and neuroscientific masterpieces. Churchill was a big fat cannibal. Leopold was an ugly and deadly virus. Columbus was a most wanted terrorist. And Abhijit Naskar is a very enlightened and smart neuroscientist who has done much more than these three men to influence the world. It's a modern necessity to own a phone, but to be owned by the phone is a modern sickness. What we can learn from this is phone bad, but phone good if you use phone well. Truly enlightening. Monkeys have a deranged jungle instinct of yapping about their religion, nation, and culture, which is why I made a point to erase mine. For I say again, for I exist, for I dissolve in all. Whoa, cool it with the racist remarks there, Naskar. Certain groups of the population are not deranged monkeys who live in a jungle. And that last part makes no sense. Due to you having residence in India, a nation state that you've signed a social contract with. He's claimed to not obey laws, but to make them. But to be a bit pedantic, I think Naskar both obeys laws and hasn't really made any laws. So, where do these enlightened and esoteric quotes come from? Well, Naskar has written over 120 books and 2,500 sonnets, all assuredly not made with the help of AI, by the way. Some of my favorite titles are We Are All Black, Love Sutra, Shi Min Samurai Naskar, The Humanitarian Dictator, either reformist or terrorist. If you are terror, I am your grandfather. I think you may get the point. All of these books, from acclaimed best-selling author, however, have no or one review, which is a bit weird. But hey, whatever. On his social media, he has celebrated how he has enough books to fill a library. But I think that a library full of nothing but, let's be honest, pointless ramblings about an ideology that a 13-year-old would have is pointless. Through his books, we learn that his ideology is just that, a nothing burger. A teenager who just saw John Lennon for the first time may believe what Naskar believes. He says we should all just cast off nations, race, religion, blah, 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 all that humanitarian stuff, and, live in peace and harmony. But where he differs is that he thinks that all people who do not believe what he believes are but apes, and all those who believe it are human, which is an insane take, and reminds me of certain other historical politicians that have called people not human for either, being different or not following his ideology. The best part is he will not shut up about how black people are the greatest race, and white people are evil monsters who have only ever destroyed. Everything he says has these kind of hypocritical flaws like this, and nothing he says would hold up in a debate, which he's never done, by the way, because, you can easily just call him a hypocrite because of some stuff I'm kind of building up to. First, we just have a little housekeeping to do. Naskar posts the same stuff to all his social medias, his Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So I think I will cover, just his Twitter, which surprisingly may remind you of his Tenor account. But what may surprise you more is that all the posts from this internationally renowned best-selling author and genius prodigy neuroscientist have zero, I repeat, zero engagement, except the odd post that gets below 5 likes. All these posts trying to sell his books and merch mixed in with his quotes are pretty amazing. These books and merch that, may I say, from a small bit of reading and looking, are both utter garbage, which is strange because he is a best-selling author. So you think he can write a good book, right? Well, put a pin in that for just a small bit longer. What I think he's doing on all his social media and with his gifts is trying to get his face, ideology, and books out there to the maximum degree possible. He is literally trying to lure the unknowing masses into his trap, to buy into his cult of personality, his books, his merch, because they think he's intelligent, wise, and he's a best-selling author, which it seems not many people are actually buying in, looking at the engagement he gets. However, there is another kind of person he is looking for, because people who are rich enough and have a certain agenda can buy him. And this, dear viewer, is where we get to how he makes bank and what is really going on. If you want your event that promotes certain ideology or has a certain agenda to have an air of legitimacy, why not hire this best-selling author that is a neuroscientist for around 10 or 20 grand? As it's all above board and legit, according to these websites that hire him out. He will talk about his philosophy of peace and love, why diversity and inclusion is good, AI, neuroscience, all these intellectual or hot-button topics of the time, right? Seems like a win for you to hire such a learned scholar to speak at your event. Well, here comes the best part. His whole life is a lie. His, quote, most famous book, The Art of Neuroscience in Everything, is not best-selling, as there is no verified metrics anywhere. No place like the New York Times bestseller list that sees it as such. Go look, and you won't find it. It will not be best-selling until we can see how many copies were actually sold. But he will never do this, I feel, as his Goodreads has 139 total ratings, 16 reviews out of 153 distinct works as of right now, which is the hallmark of a very niche author. As George Orwell
This is like George Orwell's book, 1984.
has 10 million ratings, 300,000 reviews. And another more recent author I pulled straight from the New York Times bestseller list this week is Brian Weaver. There's 1 million ratings, 150,000 reviews. All this together shows he is, not a well-regarded famous author like he would have you believe, and is merely trying to come across as one, to seem like a, learned scholar. I want to point out that he points out He is an AI specialist, meaning he knows how to use this AI shit. It's funny to ponder that maybe he might have used it at some points. I can't prove he has, but it's really damn suspicious how he can pump all these books out. Like, 120 bucks, 2,500 sonnets, in 10 years is quite the output if you've ever tried any writing at all. It'd be hard to get 2 good books out a year, and this guy on average is doing 12 a year, especially if most of these books have like 150 pages. Oh, but if only that was it, because it gets even better. Have you noticed that all his quotes he has, and even his most popular book, have very little to actually do with neuroscience? And more so come off as pop science any old Joe with the pub could spout off? It's mixed with a little bit of philosophy and politics, which are much easier to get into at an entry level than science. Well, my dear viewer, you may have pieced this together, but he has no degree. None. Zero. He is a completely self-taught neuroscientist, which means fucking nothing. And this is all from his Goodreads biography. He left his education in computer science. Now, at least he is saying all this plainly. But where I take issue is he calls himself a neuroscientist, which is crazy because he has 0 published peer-reviewed papers. It would be like calling myself a historian when it's something I just have an interest in or have looked a lot into. Well, I can't do that because I've never wrote a history paper that has been peer-reviewed. I've never done a degree that involves the study of history. This isn't the pre-1800s. It's 2025, where, such a claim as that is very purposefully misleading. Even after all that, I will not say that he is stupid, though. Quite the opposite. He devised this scheme, and it has led him to be on TED Talks and to be a speaker at the World Youth Forum. This guy is the pinnacle of fake it till you make it, a masterclass, if you will. Because these two things have made it so that this man can make bank off being hired as a public speaker, which, as I mentioned, legitimizes the events he speaks at, which in the end legitimize him. It creates an Ouroboros of legitimizing a man who has no books that have sold well, despite claiming to be a best-selling author, and a man who claims to be a genius neuroscientist, who is not a neuroscientist, and who no legitimate scientist worth their salt would touch with a 10-foot pole. So, to quote our boy, selfishness is still the first nature of humanity, and kindness second. The day kindness becomes our first nature, and selfishness second, that day I'll call it a civilized world. But Naskar, even to you, selfishness is still your first nature, and in the end, you've been caught out by a guy on the internet who did a little bit of research into you. I hope you enjoyed that look into the one weird guy in the GIFs, because I sure enjoyed looking into it. It was a really fun topic to research. Now, there are certain things I just cannot find, like how many bookings this guy gets a year to do his speaking, but it's probably enough to keep him comfortable when it comes to money. I also can't find out if he actually has a degree in computer science or not, as there's no record saying if he has one, and he claims to on LinkedIn. But Goodreads and a few other sites say he left it for self-taught neuroscience. So take it as you will, as this is a known tactic for certain people who come from third world countries, other such places, to do because, the universities will not verify if they got the degree or not. I am by no means saying everyone from India or Turkey or whatever is doing this, just that it's easier to do when you're from those places. I also cannot find how many books he has sold in total, due to none of it being public. Probably because Naskar does not want his measly sales to be public. But because of the low count of reviews and ratings, it's probably not that high. Anyways, have a nice dawn, dusk, or anything in between. That has been the man behind the GIFs, Abhijit Naskar.